we're gonna do something completely different today, and I think the best way to introduce it is for you to be standing, not all the way back where you've been for our walking experiments, but just standing away going back away from the camera so I can see your
Got it.
whole self.
You
Facing,
want the
facing.
shoes.
Hmm?
You want the shoes.
Uh, we don't need the shoes right away.
Okay. Then I'm not changing.
We might want the shoes.
They're
It's
so extra.
always good to have the shoes
The
available.
shoes are as extra as me. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
only when necessary.
Yeah, we might want to use the shoes, but let's just start without them. Just I want to just introduce you to a whole new way of changing things in yourself.
Okay, great.
So you remember, I think it was in the first lesson, maybe the second, we talked about your head neck relationship,
Mm-hmm.
where the movement was from, and you
Yeah.
experiment with nodding and sideways movements. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned that your head has a center of gravity.
Yes.
And do you remember where that is?
Yeah, we put that line like behind your ears in that indent.
That's
You
that's the line around which you rotate your head, but
Yes.
your head has a center of gravity.
Ooh,
It's up
okay.
here. It's at
Oh,
eye
okay.
level. Do we not get to that?
I don't think we did.
Oh, well, then we need to get to that first.
Okay,
Just
okay.
your head, the center of gravity of your head is right at eye level, just behind your eyes.
Okay, and what does that mean, center
Yeah,
of gravity?
center of gravity. So you don't read from like high school physics, any object, anything in the universe has a center of gravity. Now, for some things, it's pretty easy to figure out where the center is. So if it's, let's say, a book, it
Mm-hmm.
is you could just draw diagonal lines across the top, and then it would be right in the middle between the top and the bottom. If it's
Uh-huh.
a ball, like a baseball or a volleyball or any kind of basketball, it would be right in the center.
The core.
Yeah, it's just a point. It's
Okay.
an infinitesimally small point, actually.
Okay.
So your head happens to have its center of gravity in front of where it moves,
Okay.
right? Quite a bit in front, and above, right?
Got
Here
it.
versus here. And because the gravitational field, which is what looks up and registers registers your head's center of gravity and draws it down to the center of the earth. That's
Oh.
happening 24/7 when you're vertical.
Hmm.
Your head is constantly being drawn down all the way to the middle of the planet. Now, you probably noticed that you're still here on the surface, right? Um, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, that's a constant force, and it's what counterbalances that force is muscular activity in the back and sides of your neck.
Hmm. Okay.
They just counteract it. So you could imagine a seesaw on a playground.
Mhm.
So a kid is sitting on one end, and that ends on the ground, right? The
Yep.
ends
Hmm.
up, and his mother or father could get him up by pushing down,
Right.
doing effort for him to come up.
I'm gonna write this down while you talk. Just
Okay,
center.
okay, because I thought
Keep
we did
going.
this, but I'm glad
Keep going.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some effort that the parent has to do to get the kid up. And then if the parent wants the kid to come down, they
Mhm.
could just take their hands off the seesaw,
Right.
but what would happen then wouldn't be
Then the
great for
kid,
the kid.
yeah,
Yeah,
the kid collapses. It's not
right.
good.
So what they do is just if they've pushed it down, they lessen the push,
Mm-hmm.
and they do it so it's a gradual change.
Okay, I
So
can imagine
the
it. Okay.
pivot point of the seesaw is somewhat analogous to the midpoint of this line that we talked about. Let me take a look at
Okay.
that's that's how it works. There's a weight in front that's
Yeah.
always tending to tilt down.
Hit. Oh, I mean, now that you say it, it makes complete sense.
And these muscles just nicely counterbalance it. And the whole system is designed so that you can make quick and easy changes with your head just by either releasing a little tension in your neck or adding a little bit if you wanted to look up to the ceiling, for example. And if you wanted to
Hmm.
look down at your feet, you don't have to do any work. You just have to stop, release,
You
do
just like
work, basically.
pull the
And
clothes
were you to fall asleep sitting up, there's where your head's going
wall.
to go. Right.
Yes.
So
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm with
it's a
you.
balanced system.
Yes.
And then it's somewhat analogous to a seesaw. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated because you have sideways movements and all the rest of it.
Huh?
But that's the basic how gravity works on your head.
Okay.
Now we want to get to how gravity affects all of you. And then
Okay.
there's where you're going to be standing up again.
Okay. I think I
Um,
tipped this.
let's see. There, that's great, right there. Great. So when you're standing there, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the gravitational force sees all of you.
Mm-hmm.
It also sees the parts because, like your arms and your legs and your head, separately because they're movable.
Right.
If you were a statue, it would just
I
see
do.
you. It would just see one
Mm-hmm.
thing. It would see you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's what it really is interested in, you might say. I'm kind of personifying gravity, and gravity is not a
I'm
person.
here for it. I'm here
But
for it.
it's what it sees, as it were, when it's looking up at you, is your center of gravity. And it would be useful, first of all, to know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you know where it is, then you can start to use it constructively.
Okay.
So let's find out where it is. So if you take one hand and let's see, I'll stand up a little for this to show you. So if you put what the top, say you have 4 fingers, you put the top finger right on your belly button,
Okay.
and then the next 3 are just below it.
Okay.
The bottom of those next 3 is the
Yep.
level at which your center of gravity is located.
Oh, geez, that's
It's
lower than I
often
thought.
pretty close to a belt line, but you can't be guaranteed about that. In my case right now, I can feel just a little below a belt. But
Right, and my belt is
depending on
like
what
right
kind
on
of
my belly
clothing
button.
you're wearing,
Mhm.
it might be different. It's 2 inches. Basically, we're talking 2 inches below your navel. The fingers, for this experiment, these fingers should all be close together, not
Got
straight.
it. Right, I think I was spreading them too far apart.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're just a quick and easy way to locate it without getting a ruler out and trying to figure out how to
Hmm.
ruler when you're standing up.
Okay,
So it's at that level. It's below your navel by about 2 inches,
got it.
and also it's pretty much exactly in the middle, front to back and side to side.
Nice. Okay.
So that's what gravity sees. And gravity, you, as far as gravity is concerned, you're an object, and there's where your center of gravity is. And gravity is drawing you, all of you, down towards the center of the earth.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But of course, you're not at the center. And the question, the immediate question might be, well, why not? What keeps you from, and especially in view of modern physics, which says that all you and all this stuff, floor, walls, everything in there is mostly nothing.
Hmm.
That is the current take on things. It's mostly empty space.
Okay.
And so if it's mostly empty space, how come you just don't go right down to the center and meet all your friends from around the world?
Yay!
And the reason is it's initially it's the floor that's supporting you, but
Right.
it's really the floor is just an extension of the surface of the earth. So
Right.
your house is built on a foundation, then this floor is separated by a level or two, or maybe not much, depending if you have a garage, a basement. But what's keeping you from going all the way down, or any of the way down, hardly any of the way down,
Yeah.
is the surface of the earth, and right now via your floor.
Sure. That foundation.
So the gravity is drawing you down. When it draws you down, it's creating a little indentation in the floor where your feet are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to take a walk, that indentation would kind of follow your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had a very soft wooden floor, like made out of balsa wood or something like that, you'd be able to see the indentation.
Right.
If you were on the beach, you would definitely see the indentation.
Definitely. Grass, carpet.
But conversely, if you were on the hardest material there is, which I believe is diamond, if you suddenly had a floor of pure diamond, that indentation would be very small because it's a very dense material, but it would still be an indentation. Okay, now the floor has its own agenda. The floor is a piece of material that's a certain shape. Okay, there's boards that have been cut a certain way, and there they are. And what goes on inside the wood, or would go on inside a sidewalk if you were walking on that, or a steel surface, is it wants to maintain its original shape. You have interrupted that by standing on it.
Sorry.
I don't think they take it personally, but
That's good.
you created a little indentation, and they would like to go back to where they were. Now, they would like to undo that indentation, which from your point of view is a pushing up against your feet. It's literally pushing up against your feet. The force of the ground via the floor is, you're being drawn down, but your whole body's being drawn down, but your feet, or if you're sitting, your sits bone, or if you're laying down, your back, your whole back of your body is being pushed up a little bit. It's almost as though the floor is saying, if you were to decide to take a walk, that part of the floor you're standing on right now is saying, if you decide to take a walk somewhere else, we're going to help you.
Yeah.
Give
Okay.
you a little push off.
Yeah. Okay.
We would be happy for you to go somewhere else, but that somewhere else would be happy for
Uh-huh.
you to go somewhere else again as
Got it.
soon as possible. So there is that little pressure on you, and you might want to just experiment for a moment in just walking around, just knowing that every time you take a step, there's a little push on the foot that's left behind. You just know that's true and see if that has any effect on how you walk. It's subtle and you might not, but it's an interesting thing to experiment with.
Yeah, I think once you start thinking about it, I often just assumed that that release of pressure was coming from like my foot getting released from the pressure, and so like blood rushes there.
Well,
But it,
your foot does get when you lift a foot off to walk, then all of that pressure is on the other foot at that moment.
yeah.
It says, okay, that's great. You got one foot off the ground. Let's see if we can get the other one off. And
Uh-huh.
hopefully by the time we get the other one off, you're going to be somewhere else in the room and we don't have to worry about you anymore.
Yeah,
So
okay. I can think
that's
about that.
something to play with, just to
Okay.
experiment with. And when you're sitting, you could just know that the surface that you're sitting on is nudging you up,
Hmm.
pushing a little bit.
Okay.
So if you were to decide to stand up from sitting, it would help a little bit. It would help you.
Mhm.
It's it's happy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very simple way to maybe take advantage of that knowledge. But there are some other ways too. So let's just take one example. Remember, I said all the parts of you also
Mm-hmm.
are seen. So it sees that you got two legs, and each of your legs has a center of gravity.
Hmm.
Center of gravity of your legs is somewhere maybe 2 or 3 inches above your knees, a little bit above your knees, and it's right in the middle of your leg. It's somewhere deep inside.
Okay.
Okay, so you could just experiment with this little thought. I'm going to take a walk, and I know that gravity sees my legs and operates on them. How about if I cooperated with gravity and said, okay, if the center of gravity of my leg is a couple of inches above my knees, we don't have to be too precise here, but
Mm-hmm.
somewhere above my knee, how about if I just decided to move that center of gravity every time I'm going to move my leg instead of moving my leg? Just
Oh,
see what happens. And if you're not, you could do the same thing we always do. You could replace that with a nonsense thought. I'm green or I'm purple, whatever color.
yeah.
If you can sense a difference.
Oh my goodness, that's a big difference.
And
You,
and I'm going to just load you up with one more thought. I'll do two more. Your
okay.
arms also
Yeah.
have centers of gravity, and they're somewhere up above your elbow. Who
Okay.
knows? I mean, I don't really know exactly. It doesn't really matter, but it's somewhere above your elbow.
Like
So
biceps area.
when you walk, your arms tend to swing on their own. But you could just think, well, how about if I let that swing take place from these two locations and see what happens? See
Mm.
if that's different from walking without doing that. So bring to bear a nonsense direction to test it.
Yeah. Well, I don't often walk and think about my arms, so just thinking about my arms, is making me I was like, that's different.
Well, you don't want to go around all day thinking about your arms or your legs, but it does take you. Did you notice that your arms moved a little more freely?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of waking your arms and legs up to some potential movement patterns that are
Mhm.
maybe a little different than you're used to.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we get to the ultimate, your own center of gravity, 2 inches below. You might want to just connect with it, put your fingers there again, just remember. And you could sometimes it's helpful to think of a line going through you, like we did this line here for your head. So a line that goes through your body and comes out at the center, a horizontal line, not no up, no down, just straight. And you could extend that in your imagination, extend the line out a little bit in front, put a little arrowhead on it, and think, okay, I'm just going to move that arrow where I want to go. Try
Oh,
that, see what happens.
so you lead with the center of your gravity.
It's not even quite leading, it's just an intent to move that arrow in the direction it's pointed. So when it comes time for a turn, instead of turning, I'm going to rotate the arrow and point it to where I want to go next.
Hmm. Okay. Oh, I like this center of gravity stuff. I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. So I would recommend just playing with it from time to time.
Hmm.